Alright, welcome back to the shop. So today we're going to play around with something a little different. I got this thing dirt cheap because it's broken. And I got some parts here. I think I'm going to see if I can try and fix it. So let's get it apart, see if we can figure out how it works, and see if we can get it working again. So basically what this is Milwaukee's AirSnake. And it's used to basically blow a jet of air down the drain to try and, the drain, to see if you can unclog minor clogs. If it's a major clog, I don't think this is going to get it. But it's an interesting tool. It's got a little air gauge in it here. And what this particular one is doing is, as soon as you put a battery in it, it just runs, and it does not, the regulator doesn't work at all. The brain box is not braining. It's not thinking. So what we'll do is we'll get this guy apart, see what it looks like inside, maybe see if we can fix it. Okay, so what we'll do is we'll take out all the screws. Got a old school Milwaukee screwdriver here, powered screwdriver, early lithium ion tool. Use this to take all the screws out. Okay, so there's what we got inside. Actually, before we get too far, I think I want to loosen this nut up so we can take this rubber piece off. So we're going to use spud wrench. You might remember this from such hit videos as Spuds, where we did a quick restoration on that tool. Oh yeah, nice and easy, nothing to it. Hopefully this thing won't go boing on me when I take it off. This is like a quick connect fitting for various attachments. You can see the ball detents in there. This is just a quick connect. Not sure what's going on there. But let's see if we can get this rubber ditty off here. Oh yeah. There we go. So there's the rubber. And I think I'm going to just throw this back on here so we don't lose anything. So what do we have in here? Looks like this thing got flooded. Here's our pneumatic lines. Okay, so it's a mechanical actuator right there. Here's where your battery comes in. Right there. Here's our board, so we're going to want to get to that. Here's our regulator. I'm not quite sure what they're... Oh, okay, so this is a rheostat. You can see it here. You get the line segments on it there. It's just it appears to be a rheostat that's going back to the board that they're using to control the resistance in the this part of the circuit, and that tells the computer where to stop for the air flow. I'm assuming that's what they're doing, unless they're using the... You can see there's a... it's possible. Maybe we'll meter it and see. But there's a stop needle in there, and the needle on the scale is metal. So I wonder if they're actually using that needle as a conductor. Interesting. So anyway, yeah, it would almost have to be just a regular switch because there's only two contacts. Fascinating. So there's an air compressor in here, Here we go. Yep, air compressor. Motor right here. And here's our board. Buried in here amongst all these pieces. So let's see if we can't get some of this out of here without making everything go flying. Okay, so we're gonna have to take that screw out right there. We got some goo holding everything together. That's always yummy. Okay, we got everything moving. So let's see what all we got going here. Got our motor. Not quite sure how that's mounted just yet. Okay, I see. So let's get our pneumatic tube. These guys here, you can just compress them and take it off. If you can get your fingers on it right. Just being the key term. Anytime somebody says just to you, get worried. Okay, so we got some of this disconnected here now, and we can see this is a motor coupled to this air compressor assembly, and here's our counterweight, connecting rod, cylinder liner here, little check valve in the top there, spring. Yeah, pretty interesting. I guess we'll have to get this apart. It looks like the motor is through bolted from the inside here, so we'll have to take these out as we keep getting into this. Let's get the board out. Okay, the board's out. I don't see anything. Oh yeah, there we go. There's a few really wicked looking components here that look like they got wet. Probably fried. Let the magic smoke out. Let's get some of these cables out of here. It seems like they have a goo on this stuff here, probably to try and keep the ingress of water out. Probably not a bad idea. So there we go. We got our LED light. There's our brain box here. Looks like it got very, very wet. So there's our electronics out of the whole thing. You can see brain box looks like it's been wet. Here's your components on the board. They also look like they got wet. Everything on this thing was appearing to be soaked at some point. So the only thing we have left in here is this push button. Looks like it's got a nice piece, so we'll get that out here. Okay, so you might be wondering why strip this thing completely down and talk about taking the motor off of this. Well, I got a whole new plastic housing here. There's a new plastic housing, so we're gonna work with that. We're gonna put this guy aside along with this guy. We don't want to lose all the screws though, so we'll leave that guy somewhere handy. And I got a whole new board here. It's got a new motor with it. Basically, we got all new electronics. So it appears as though the light the battery connection, and this button. I'm not sure exactly what the button does because, like I said, the tool wasn't working properly when I got it. So we'll figure that out when we get her running again. So you can see this is threaded here, which is makes sense for this. So here's a motor. There's no identifying marks on it, but it does look like it runs counterclockwise. And here's the new board. Not all rusted up, thankfully. So there we go. So we have that part. This is like an air chamber, and then there's a valve inside of that that actuates everything. So it appears as though I'll have to take this off of here then as well. But let's start tearing into this motor so we can get all this separated. Okay, so we got Torx fasteners here. Just use this here. I don't know how tight they are. They're not killer tight. See what we get into here when we take this apart. Check valve just fell out of this thing. Just as well. There it is. There's our check valve. Don't want to lose that. Don't quite know what to expect here. Okay. Oh, we got that loose. Now what? Ah, I see. We're getting some halves here. I don't know if I have to loosen that or not. Looks like these are just retaining that bearing in. Probably have to take that snap ring off in order to get that out. Let's do that. Alright, I've already swapped the snap ring pliers around because that's always a rule of thumb there. Time you work with snap rings, you have to flop your pliers around. So there we go, there's our snap ring. Now let's see if we can slide that shaft out. I get too forceful here. It's in there. Let's see what that's on that crank. Connecting rod. I don't really want to. And maybe I got a brass mallet here. Baby brass mallet. Don't beat it too hard, but sometimes you just gotta give it a little something. See if it wants to go. It is moving. Wow. There's quite a gear in there. So it's in that bearing pretty well. So I may want to get a drift and run this through. Actually, maybe I don't have to. Okay, we got it far enough that I think, yeah, we can get to the screw, get the motor out. So let's give that a go first. So we don't need to dissect the whole thing. Generally, good rule of thumb is disturb as little as possible, and you won't struggle as much. Somewhere in this gelatinous mass of goo should be a screw. That rhymed. Who knew? And I don't think I'm going to get that screw. Oh yeah, I am. Right there. Okay, so the motor already has a gear on it. So, let's get this guy out. So there's our pinion gear right there. And judging by what we see on it, this thing was not run very hard at all. You can see that the pinion gear was lashing on this side. It hadn't seated all the way across on that bull gear, which is inside here on the crankshaft. You can kind of see it there inside, and that's just connected to the crankshaft there. Counterweight for the crankshaft. Connecting rod. It's actually fairly substantial, I gotta say. Actually, it looks pretty nice. Nice little compressor. I don't know what the duty cycle of it would be. It's, you know, pretty much, that's steel. It's got some rust on it. So I mean, there's some decent parts in this. Okay, so let's see if we can get our new motor on there. Get this old stuff out of here. We are done with it. Alrighty. So we got a new pinion gear on our new motor. Index this just like that. There we go. And that lashes with the gears. Yep. Just like that. Now we should be able to run this screw in. There it is, it started. Just get it started for now. Don't want to tighten it all the way. Do the same thing with this one. This one all snug. Okay, click. And there we go. Good and tight. Good and tight. So the grease looks good in there. Everything looks pretty good. Now you can see I got this kind of splayed out here a little bit because we got to drive that pin back in a little bit. So I'm going to hold everything kind of close to me so I don't beat it up, but you can see little cattywampus there. So alright, so we got everything good and square again. We'll just, I already started these screws, we'll snug them up. Get them down in first. Okay, there we go. Good and snug. Alright, and we got a good gap there again on that. We can try and launch the snap ring across the shop here and put that back on. Always scary every time. There we go. Back on. So yeah, that's a pretty nice little compressor assembly. Little head here on top of the cylinder. And our check valve. Put that back in. So there we go, there's that part. So now I'm going to put this back together And just do this off camera because it's going to take a little bit of futzing around. We'll be back. So now that that's all tight, what I'll do while I have all this loose is get this guy off, clean the shmoo off my screwdriver here first. Get this guy off of here. See if that's, yep, that's threaded good. A little concerned it might have a nut inside or something. I have to do more surgery. That's from the old getup. So now we need to get our new guy on there. And I probably screwed up here. I could have just kept the old one on there and plugged in the new board. But I got all new components, so why not put them all on? But I really didn't have to. Okay, there we go. So there's our screw. So now what we'll do is we'll bring our new plastic housing into the fray here. This guy's got some rust on him. I'm gonna clean that up quick. Okay, nice and shiny, just like new. That goes in here, captured in this stud. Now, there are, before we get too crazy here, there are rubber stops to isolate isolators, basically. We got a bunch of them here. It'd be smart to put some of these in here. I might go in certain ODs in certain spots. So let me get all that separated. Alright, got a pocket full, or a handful of little isolators here. We'll start putting these in. These will get crushed when you put in the new, or you put in the reservoir. That's what keeps that all from vibrating in this housing. Okay, so we got all them in. So now we can start looking at putting this guy back together. So if we remember, the board was sitting in here kinda crazily up in this area. These wires want to go up there. The lights got to line up. The surface mounted LED chips here, they got to line up with the little light holes, which we can make happen there. Let's get this guy lined up here. Yep, just like that. This guy, everything goes down in. What else do we have going on here? Got our black wire, and these wires are all going to come over. This guy I should just unplug. Run this off. This is our push button. It's not, it doesn't feel bad, but I can't see if it's really well sealed. It's potted pretty well. Everything's reasonably decent. The board is a little disappointing how much protection is on it. You think they'd have a lot more conformal coating on it or something like that to try and seal it. It's not the best looking board, but I don't plan on throwing this thing in a bathtub or something like that. They have extensions for it. If there's a deep drain or something that you need to get into, you're supposed to put the extensions on and not submerge this thing. This thing's just really aimed towards incidental ingress of water, not the complete flooding of it, which is what I think happened to this. But like I said, I picked it up really cheap, so that's always kind of exciting to pick up a tool that's rather expensive on the cheap. And we'll see if we get lucky on this one that we were able to buy the parts and hopefully fix it. It's always a gamble. Sometimes you just throw the money away anyway, but sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. Alright, I'm going to get a socket and see if I can get that in there. This is really a kind of a bad spot for this because I don't think I can cram a socket on this with this wire sticking out, and I don't have, it's just awkward with a wrench, but I got that pretty snug, so I think we'll let well enough alone on that. Okay, so we got most of this back together now. We got our wire on there, wires on here, everything's pretty well tucked in to where it needs to go. This mechanism should work. It's not perfectly aligned yet, so need to have this retained on the other side, but this is what actuates the whole thing. I do believe. Okay, let's see how we did here. Probably didn't get that pin to go. Not atrocious. There we go. That seems like it's gonna work. That seems like it's gonna work. Okay. So I guess what we'll do is we'll get a few screws in it just to hold it. And I want to get this rubber piece on just because I don't want to lose what I got here. That comes out very easy. Okay. The rest of this guy holds together pretty nicely. So we'll want to get a screw here because that screw is under the rubber. Or potentially is anyway. Whoopsies. Anyway, so there we go. That still works. See what happens. Get us a battery. I will go low amp hour just in case there's an issue. Let's have our dial down all the way. Nothing. Interesting. No runny run. Why? Alright, so we're gonna have to play around with this a little bit. Alright, so after the appropriate amount of screwing around and just the right amount of carnage trail of tools and other parts, I believe we got this thing working. So what happened to us was inside of here there is a tube, and that tube has a check valve at the bottom of it in this tank, and I did not know that was there, so it all sprung out, and when I went to put it back together we were building pressure as long as I held my finger over the hole. So what I had to do was play around with it, get the check valve back together. We did that. Seems like it's working. So the way this works is you have a regulator here in the back. There we go. Can't really see that. There you go. So it's like 0 to 50. And there's a little needle that you can adjust here. See if I can shine a light on it there. Make it nice and glary. There we go. So we have our adjusted to 10. And I think what they're doing is the needle on the gauge is metal. So they're actually touching that tab right there. And that's what's turning it off. So there's a power button here on the side. Right here, we're going to hold that in. And it shuts off when it gets to 10. And then there's a mechanical trigger. We saw that rod inside there, mechanically actuated. And this thing actually gives a pretty good shot. I don't know if you can hear that or not, but it gives a pretty good shot outside of it. So I'm going to charge it up to 10 psi again here. And you might actually see there's actually a discharge from this thing. It's got quite a bit of volume. It's an interesting tool. And I can see where they say start at the lowest setting and work your way up. I mean, if you had plastic drain pipes, I think you'd blow them all apart with this thing. So I think this is a tool that you want to be very conservative with and very careful. But I think we'll have some use for this here and there. It's one of those things, I picked it up because it was interesting and I wanted to see if I could fix it. But looks like we did. So we got it. Some projects come up that we actually need it. We're going to get it out and see how it works. There's various attachments that go on it. Some for bigger drains, smaller drains, everything else. I don't have that stuff out here right now. I just have this because I wanted to get this running. So if we have a project where we need this thing, maybe we'll make another video with it and see if it fixes our issue. So there we go. It's the AirSnake. Very fascinating tool. I'm pretty impressed with the way the compressor was made in this. And it's an interesting regulator circuit, basically, what they're doing. If I'm right about this, that they picked the contact off of the metal needle and the little stop there. That's a very interesting way of doing things. So there we dialed in. Looks like the needle's actually bent. Somebody was probably really being rough with this thing at some point. So it's probably off a little bit on its pressure. But there's about 5 psi. I know I was out of frame there. So let's see here. Okay. And not a super heavy discharge. They say start at the lowest and don't overdo it. So I'll set it at 30 psi here, and you'll see this is a pretty wicked discharge. Okay, there we go. And it's got a lot of velocity behind it. So that's a Very interesting idea to try and get those nuisance clogs, hairballs, or whatever out of a drain. I think, you know, a wad of paper or something like that, just about concreted in there, this thing's not going to touch it. I don't think. But there are those nuisance clogs that are just real slow and everything else. I think this would probably be quite a time saver if you're responsible with it. You obviously don't want to turn it all the way up to 11 there and expect it to be as crazy as possible, because I can see where you do some damage to the piping. But there we go, AirSnake, got it working. This one's been flying around the shop here for a while on the please fix me pile, so there we go, we got another one fixed. Luckily we were able to source the parts for it and got it all fixed up. We got nice new rubber here, new plastic, and that's always nice, because especially a tool like this, you have no idea where it was before you had it and what goo or whatever was on it beforehand. So we just went all new with it, and whatever mess is on it now, we'll know where it came from. So there we go, AirSnake fixed up and working. Look forward to using it in the future. Thanks for watching.